Hey guys, tonight we're diving into one of the most captivating, mysterious stories of all time, Atlantis. Imagine it with me. A city gleaming with golden towers, shimmering temples, and streets paved with precious stones, all basking under the sun's warm embrace. A place where knowledge flowed like the very rivers that ran through it, and where people lived in harmony with nature's wonders. But here's the kicker: it vanished. Just disappeared. Paradise swallowed by the sea. Now, you probably won't survive this journey. Don't worry, no real danger here, unless, of course, we stumble upon some ancient secrets or terrifying truths along the way. So, before you get comfy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Feel free to share your location and the local time in the comments. Are you curled up in bed in New York? Or drifting off over tea in London? Let's find out. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It all starts with the man who might have first revealed Atlantis to the world, Plato.
Plateau.
His dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, offer us the earliest known account of the lost city. Plato tells of an advanced, powerful civilization that once flourished, a civilization that existed beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, where the Mediterranean meets the Atlantic. According to him, Atlantis was an island, a paradise, a perfect society with everything from glittering cities to advanced technologies. Atlantis was ruled by powerful kings, believed to be descended from the gods themselves. Then, in a twist fit for any great tragedy, Atlantis fell. According to Plato, after becoming corrupt and greedy, the Atlanteans tried to conquer the world, and the gods were having none of it. In a great act of divine punishment, a series of disasters, earthquakes, floods, and other cataclysmic events struck. And just like that, Atlantis was swallowed by the ocean, vanishing without a trace. Historians still argue whether Plato was simply telling us a story about the rise and fall of civilizations, or if he was describing a real historical event. After all, who wouldn't want to believe in a city so grand, with its towering temples and grand halls of learning? Some believe the story was a metaphor, a cautionary tale designed to remind Athens of its own vulnerability to the excesses of power. So, was Atlantis real? Or was Plato simply playing the role of a storyteller, spinning a fable to provoke thought? The debate continues to this day, and with every theory that comes and goes, the allure of Atlantis only grows. You'll soon see why this legend, this haunting tale, still pulls us in. Just imagine, if Atlantis did exist, what would it reveal? What untold stories would rise from the depths? Now that we've dipped our toes into the myth of Atlantis, let's go deeper. Plato didn't just toss out a casual anecdote about a city that sank. Oh no, he gave us a detailed story, almost as if he was reporting the fall of a real empire. And it's this very detail that keeps historians on their toes. You see, Plato's version of Atlantis wasn't just some fleeting idea, it was a grand civilization, advanced in every sense. And in the story, Atlantis wasn't some small island off the coast of a minor kingdom. No, it was massive. So massive, in fact, that it was larger than Libya and Asia combined. The city of Atlantis, according to Plato, was laid out in a series of concentric circles, one ring of water after another, separated by strips of land. It's as if Atlantis was designed to be a marvel of human ingenuity, a paradise of sorts, with canals and bridges that spanned between the circles. Imagine the view from the tallest tower, where you could look out and see these shimmering, circular roads that reflected the sunlight in all directions. Sounds like the kind of place that would make you forget about everything else in the world. But, of course, paradise has its price. As you can imagine, the rulers of Atlantis weren't exactly saints. Initially, they were peaceful and lived in harmony with the gods. But over time, they began to grow prideful. They started to expand their empire, pushing into Europe, Africa, and Asia. Your typical story of the power-hungry empire growing beyond its limits. Plato tells us that they became so arrogant, so self-assured of their superiority, that they believed they could conquer the world. And that, my friend, is where things took a nosedive. The gods, displeased by the Atlanteans' hubris, decided it was time to put an end to their reign. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions struck, and the city was swallowed by the ocean in a single day and night. The once great empire, with all its opulence and splendor, was lost. Now here's where the fun begins. Historians still debate whether Plato's account is historical fact or just an allegory. Was Plato truly documenting a real event? Or was he using the story of Atlantis to illustrate the fall of societies? Perhaps it was meant as a warning to the Athenians themselves, showing them how even the most powerful civilizations could crumble when they became too full of themselves. After all, Greece was in a period of political and military strength when Plato wrote, so it's possible he wanted to remind his countrymen that they weren't invincible. However, there are those who are convinced that Plato was telling the truth, that somewhere, out there, Atlantis once existed, and its sinking wasn't just a metaphor. The idea of Atlantis as a real place is tantalizing, even though it's been impossible to pin down. Every time a theory comes up, we get excited. Could it be real? Could there be evidence hiding just below the surface, waiting to be discovered? And here's a fun thought. What if Plato was telling the truth? What would the discovery of Atlantis mean for us today? Would it rewrite history? Could we find ancient technologies or untold wisdom buried beneath the waves? The thought is both exciting and overwhelming, isn't it? It's one of those mysteries that feels like it's just out of reach, taunting us with the possibility. Now, let's wander a little deeper into the world of possibilities. The search for Atlantis is a bit like chasing a shadow. It's always there, just out of reach, but it refuses to go away. And despite the lack of concrete evidence, people keep trying to pinpoint the exact location of this lost civilization. Some believe that, like Plato said, Atlantis was swallowed up by the sea, disappearing forever beneath the waves. But where exactly was it? Historians, archaeologists, and even dreamers have put forward dozens of theories over the centuries. One of the most popular theories places Atlantis right in the heart of the Mediterranean. Many have pointed to the island of Santorini, once called Thera, as the potential location of Atlantis. Thera was the site of one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history, around 1500 BCE, and some theorists argue that this catastrophic event could have been the source of Plato's story. Imagine this: a flourishing civilization, suddenly destroyed by a massive explosion. The city's grand buildings, its precious treasures, all buried beneath ash and lava. Sounds eerily similar to Plato's account, doesn't it? But there's a twist in this theory. The Minoans, who lived on Crete and surrounding islands, were an advanced civilization that mysteriously vanished around the time of Thera's eruption. It's easy to see how their story could have become woven into the Atlantis myth. Historians still argue whether the destruction of the Minoans could have been the inspiration for Plato's tale. Could Plato have been inspired by this catastrophic event, blending reality with legend to create his account of Atlantis? Or was the volcanic eruption just an event that coincidentally mirrored his story? Now, here's where things get interesting and a bit more mysterious. Another popular theory takes us across the globe to the Caribbean. Some have suggested that Atlantis wasn't located in the Mediterranean at all, but rather somewhere in the warm waters of the Atlantic Ocean. The island of Bimini, located in the Bahamas, has long been linked to the legend. In the 1960s, a diver named Edgar Cayce made waves when he claimed to have seen the remains of Atlantis near Bimini, describing large, underwater stone structures that seemed out of place. Over the years, there have been rumors of strange formations beneath the waves in this region. Some say they look like remnants of roads, buildings, or even massive walls. But of course, much like Santorini, Bimini has been the subject of intense debate. Some say these underwater formations are simply natural occurrences, like the way coral reefs form. Others believe that they are, indeed, the remains of a lost civilization. The problem is, no one has ever been able to definitively prove either theory. So, as you sit here, lying back and imagining the crystal-clear waters of Bimini, you might wonder, could this be the site of Atlantis? Or are we just grasping at the edges of a dream? And yet, despite these theories, there's a third possibility that we can't ignore. Atlantis never existed. What if Plato's story was entirely fictional? A philosophical allegory meant to teach lessons about power, pride, and the fragility of human civilizations. There are many who believe that Plato simply used the idea of a lost city as a way to communicate deeper truths about his own world. His society was in the midst of political turmoil, and he may have wanted to show that even the greatest civilizations could fall if they became too corrupt. The sinking of Atlantis might not have been a literal event at all, but rather a way to remind his readers, us, about the inevitability of change. So, whether Atlantis lies in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, or is simply a legend, one thing is certain: the search for it continues. It's a mystery that pulls at the heart of human curiosity, a story that challenges us to look beyond what we know and wonder, what if? As you drift deeper into this mystery, take a moment to think, what would it mean for our understanding of history if Atlantis were to be found? What secrets could it hold? And more importantly, who would find it first? Would the discovery answer questions? Or just raise even more? Now that we've explored some of the most prominent theories about Atlantis' location, let's take a moment to consider a question that always seems to come up. What if Plato's story wasn't just about a place, but about a warning? Plato's tale of a mighty civilization brought low by hubris is often seen as more than just a narrative about the fall of a great city. Historians and philosophers alike have wondered if Atlantis was really just a mirror, reflecting the fears and ambitions of the time. Could it have been less about the physical city of Atlantis and more about the moral and ethical lessons Plato was trying to impart? Think about it. In Plato's telling, Atlantis was the epitome of a perfect society, until it wasn't. The rulers were descended from the gods, blessed with every advantage, and at first, they lived in harmony with the gods and nature. But as time passed, things changed. The Atlanteans grew proud. They expanded their empire. They sought to conquer other civilizations, to rule over the world. And that, of course, is when the gods struck back. They punished Atlantis for its pride and ambition, sending it beneath the ocean in a great flood. It's a perfect story about power gone wrong. Historians still argue whether this was just a story meant to teach a lesson or whether it was a true account of a lost civilization. But one thing's for certain: Plato's Atlantis story can't be ignored. Even if the physical city doesn't exist, the moral implications of the tale certainly ring true across the ages. Was Atlantis a warning to the Athenians about their own empire? Was Plato cautioning them against overextending their power, against becoming so consumed with greatness that they might fall just as swiftly as Atlantis? Imagine you're an Athenian hearing this story from Plato. He's telling you that no matter how powerful you are, no matter how advanced or civilized, the moment you start to believe you are invincible, the gods will strike you down. It would be hard not to take that as a warning about your own future, wouldn't it? This concept of Atlantis as a moral lesson has only gained more traction as we've studied it throughout history. Think of all the great empires that have risen and fallen: ancient Rome, the British Empire, even the United States. The story of Atlantis could be seen as a reflection of the cycle of civilization itself. The rise, the glory, and then the inevitable fall. Perhaps the idea of Atlantis was not about a specific place, but about human nature itself. So, let's say you're now thinking about how societies rise and fall, and you're starting to wonder, could this same fate happen again? Could we, in our current world, be following in the footsteps of Atlantis, growing too confident, too consumed by our own progress and power? It's an uncomfortable thought, isn't it? But it's this exact question that makes Atlantis so compelling. The idea that we're all part of this cyclical pattern is what gives the story its timeless relevance. And yet, as we drift further into the ocean of possibilities, we still can't help but wonder. Could Atlantis have been real after all? Maybe the gods, in their mysterious ways, were trying to send a message, one we still haven't fully decoded. It's a haunting thought, isn't it? A place lost to time, leaving behind nothing but a whisper that somehow still echoes through the ages. Let's take a moment to pause and consider something that has captured the imagination of explorers, archaeologists, and dreamers for centuries: the geography of Atlantis. Where exactly could this remarkable city have been located? As we know, Plato gave us some pretty detailed descriptions of the island, an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, surrounded by rings of water and land. Yet, despite all the detail, finding Atlantis has remained elusive, like trying to catch a fleeting dream that slips through your fingers just when you think you've grasped it. Now, let's explore some of the major theories about Atlantis' location. Some close to the Mediterranean, others far beyond its shores. The Mediterranean is often considered one of the most likely spots. After all, Plato himself placed Atlantis just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. This would put Atlantis somewhere within the Atlantic Ocean, not far from the southern coast of Spain or even the coast of North Africa. Could it be somewhere near the Canary Islands or even closer to the Azores? These areas have been speculated to be the remnants of Atlantis, offering clues in their geography, their mysterious underwater formations, and their ancient history. But that's not all. There's another theory that positions Atlantis further east, somewhere around the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea. Remember, we've already talked about the Minoans and their sudden collapse after a catastrophic volcanic eruption. The eruption at Thera, Santorini, is one of the most powerful volcanic events in history, and it could easily have wiped out a civilization. This event, around 1500 BCE, destroyed much of the Minoan Empire and could have been the inspiration for Plato's Atlantis tale. Many believe that the Minoans, with their advanced art, engineering, and seafaring abilities, might have been Plato's real-life prototype for the Atlanteans. Their civilization had many similarities to what Plato described, including an impressive network of islands, intricate architecture, and advanced technologies. Could the Minoans' sudden disappearance have been misinterpreted as the fall of Atlantis? Yet, there's another theory that leads us across the world to the Caribbean, and even into the jungles of the Americas. Imagine this: Atlantis was not in the Mediterranean at all, but somewhere near the Bahamas, off the coast of Florida, in the waters around Bimini. The story of Bimini's Road has captivated the curious for decades. Some believe that the Bimini Road, an underwater formation of large stones, could be the remains of ancient walls, streets, or even a city. Could it be that Atlantis was a thriving civilization, right in the heart of the Atlantic, only to be swallowed by the ocean long ago? And let's not forget the more radical theories, like the idea that Atlantis may not have been an island at all, but rather part of the larger landmass of Antarctica. Yes, that's right. Some have speculated that, millions of years ago, the Antarctic was not covered by ice but was a lush, habitable continent with a thriving civilization. Could the shifting of the Earth's poles have led to the city's disappearance beneath ice sheets and oceans? This theory is far more speculative, but it's certainly fascinating to think about, especially when you consider how much of our own world's history is still a mystery. But with all these theories, one thing remains: the mystery of Atlantis continues to linger. Historians, archaeologists, and explorers have yet to uncover definitive evidence proving the existence of a city like Atlantis. For every clue, there are a dozen more questions. And yet, we keep searching, we keep wondering, we keep hoping that one day, a piece of Atlantis will rise from the depths of the sea, revealing secrets and knowledge that have been lost to us for millennia. As you drift deeper into the mystery of Atlantis, imagine the thrill of discovery. What would it be like to stumble upon the ruins of this fabled city? Would you recognize it immediately, or would it take years of careful excavation to even scratch the surface of its hidden truths? The question isn't just where Atlantis is, it's also how it will change the way we understand history. After all, what do we truly know about the ancient world? And what lies hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be found? As we journey further into the mystery of Atlantis, let's talk about the evidence, or rather, the lack thereof, that has fueled the debate for centuries. If Atlantis truly existed, surely there would be undeniable proof by now, right? Or perhaps not. The ocean, vast and mysterious, has a way of swallowing things whole, hiding them beneath layers of time and water. But what if Atlantis wasn't entirely swallowed? What if we've just been looking in the wrong places? The search for Atlantis is as much about the idea of the city as it is about the physical evidence, or the lack of it. Over the years, there have been numerous expeditions, from underwater archaeological digs to satellite imagery, all hoping to unearth something that could lend credence to the theory of a lost civilization. Some researchers point to mysterious underwater formations, others to ancient maps that hint at lands now submerged. One such intriguing discovery occurred off the coast of Spain, where sonar technology detected strange, grid-like patterns beneath the sea. Could this be the remnants of a lost city? Well, the answer isn't clear, and that's the beauty of this mystery. It's full of possibilities. Perhaps the most famous piece of evidence for Atlantis came from the 20th century, with the discovery of a set of submerged ruins near the Bahama Islands, known as the Bimini Road. Some say the stones appear man-made, arranged in a way that suggests the remains of a road or a dock, leading us to wonder if this could indeed be the lost city's remains. But, as you might guess, mainstream archaeology doesn't buy into it. Skeptics believe that the formation is simply a natural coral reef, shaped in a way that fools the eye. And yet, the mystery lingers. Could this be a piece of the puzzle? Then there are the old maps. One of the most famous is the Pyre Reis map, a 16th century document that shows parts of the world with remarkable accuracy, some of which, in modern times, shouldn't have been known. The map depicts a landmass that some believe could be the continent of Antarctica, without the thick ice sheets that cover it today. If this map is to be believed, then ancient civilizations might have had access to knowledge long before recorded history tells us they did. Could these ancient mapmakers have known about Atlantis? And if so, how did they know? These scattered pieces of evidence, combined with the tantalizing clues in Plato's writings, keep the mystery alive. And while we may never uncover a definitive answer, each discovery, no matter how small, adds another layer to the story. Whether or not we ever find Atlantis, its legend continues to inspire us, pushing us to explore the unknown and challenge our understanding of history. It's funny how one small piece of evidence can send the mind spinning, isn't it? Each new theory or discovery is like a thread in a massive, tangled web, one that we can never fully untangle, but that we can't help but keep pulling on. Maybe that's why the story of Atlantis has such staying power. It's the perfect blend of mystery, history, and possibility. And who knows? The next time you dive into the ocean, or perhaps the next time you glance at a map, you might just wonder, what if? Now that we've examined the evidence, or lack thereof, in our quest for Atlantis, let's take a step back and consider a question that haunts us all. What was it that made Atlantis so special? Was it simply the allure of a lost civilization? Or was it the idea of ancient knowledge that could change everything we know about the past? The thought of a civilization so advanced that it could rival our modern-day achievements is a tantalizing one. But just how advanced could Atlantis have been? Let's explore the theories of the technology that might have existed in this fabled city. Plato's descriptions of Atlantis suggest that the city was far beyond the capabilities of any known civilization of his time. He talks about grand, well-organized cities with towering structures, sophisticated water systems, and a society that seemed to have perfected the art of living in harmony with the environment. The Atlanteans were said to possess advanced technologies, including the ability to manipulate the natural world in ways that we can only dream of today. They were even said to have harnessed the power of the earth itself, using it for both practical and spiritual purposes. Historians still argue whether Plato was being literal or symbolic when describing these technological wonders. Did Atlantis have technology far beyond that of the ancient Greeks? Or was Plato simply using the city as a symbol for the ideals of perfect governance and harmony? Some believe that the Atlanteans were capable of creating energy sources or machines that were centuries ahead of their time. From solar-powered structures to advanced metallurgy, Atlantis was thought to have been a civilization on the cutting edge of innovation. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Atlantis legend is the idea that the Atlanteans possessed knowledge that was lost to the world after their fall. Could they have had access to scientific and technological secrets that we've yet to uncover? Could their advancements in medicine, engineering, and energy production have been so profound that, after their destruction, they were erased from history altogether? Some even suggest that the destruction of Atlantis wasn't just a natural disaster. It could have been the result of the Atlanteans' own misuse of this powerful technology. A cautionary tale of what happens when advanced civilizations fail to wield power responsibly. But, of course, all of this is speculative. Still, the idea of a civilization that had knowledge of advanced technologies has captured the imagination of countless adventurers, thinkers, and scientists. What if Atlantis had discovered the secrets of flight? Or what if they had developed ways to communicate over vast distances without the technology we use today? There are theories that suggest the Atlanteans had an understanding of electromagnetic fields, sound energy, or even gravity that could have allowed them to build structures we can only dream of now. But these ideas remain firmly in the realm of speculation. Historians still argue about whether any of this is even possible, or if it's just a product of myth-making. The more we delve into the idea of Atlantis' technological prowess, the more questions arise. If Atlantis had advanced technology, where did it go? Was it lost forever in the sinking of the city? Or did it survive in some form, passed down through other ancient civilizations? The story of Atlantis is filled with mystery, but it's also filled with the potential for discovery. If there's one thing we can take from this legend, it's that the past holds many secrets, some of which may still be waiting to be uncovered. Atlantis, with all its promise of advanced technology and knowledge, remains a symbol of what might have been. A tantalizing glimpse into what ancient civilizations could have achieved, had they survived. As you imagine this long-lost society, picture its towers reaching into the sky, its streets lined with shining stones, and its people working together in a world of unimaginable beauty. And in that moment, you might wonder, could this all be more than just a story? Could Atlantis have been a glimpse into what we could have become, had we not been so quick to lose ourselves in the pursuit of power and control? Now that we've marveled at the potential technological advancements of Atlantis, let's pivot for a moment and consider the wider impact this legendary civilization might have had on the ancient world. Plato's tale tells us that Atlantis wasn't just an isolated island. It was a massive empire, expanding far beyond the shores of its home island. And as we look back at history, we see that many ancient civilizations seem to have been connected by something: trade routes, shared ideas, and even cultural exchanges that were far more extensive than we once believed. Historians have long debated how interconnected the ancient world really was. But the legend of Atlantis suggests that the possibilities were much broader than we might imagine. Could Atlantis have influenced other ancient civilizations? Could its rise and fall have been a pivotal moment in the development of the ancient world? In Plato's account, the Atlanteans didn't just conquer. They also shared their knowledge with neighboring cultures. They had advanced technologies, yes, but they also had wisdom. They had built great cities, with impressive architecture and vast networks of canals. If this civilization was as advanced as Plato suggested, it's hard to believe that it wouldn't have had some sort of influence on the surrounding cultures. Could the Egyptians, the Phoenicians, or even the early Greeks have learned something from the Atlanteans? Could they have been inspired by the idea of an island civilization, surrounded by concentric rings of water? This question, however, leads us to an even deeper mystery. How much do we truly know about ancient global connections? Ancient historians like Herodotus and Pliny the Elder suggested that cultures in Europe, Africa, and Asia were trading goods, ideas, and technologies far earlier than we originally thought. Could these early traders have crossed paths with the Atlanteans? Did they leave behind relics, languages, or cultural practices that we haven't fully understood yet? If we allow ourselves to entertain the idea that Atlantis wasn't just a myth but a real, advanced civilization, it's possible that it played a pivotal role in the exchange of knowledge and the shaping of later societies. But this raises an intriguing question. If Atlantis was so influential, Why isn't it more widely recognized in the historical record? Why is it that no other cultures seem to have recorded its existence, at least not in the way Plato described it? Historians still argue over the influence of Atlantis on the rest of the ancient world, with some even suggesting that the myths of lost cities in cultures around the world could be reflections of this long-lost empire. Take the Egyptians, for example. They had their own stories of lost cities. Some even spoke of a great civilization that existed before them, only to be destroyed by a cataclysmic event. Could this be the same event that Plato described, or just another version of the same tale, passed down through generations? And let's not forget the intriguing similarities between Atlantis and the many other myths of lost civilizations found in different parts of the world. The Native American stories of sunken islands in the Pacific, the Mayan legends of a golden city, and even the Polynesian myths about great civilizations lost to the sea, they all share some striking similarities with Plato's account of Atlantis. Are these stories mere coincidences, or could they be echoes of a long-lost history? Could ancient civilizations have all been connected in ways we've only just begun to understand? As you think about all the connections, the myths, and the untold stories that tie together the world's ancient cultures, it becomes clear that Atlantis could have been more than just a city. It could have been a symbol of the unity of humankind. Whether real or imagined, the story of Atlantis speaks to something universal in us all. A desire to understand the past and to discover the lost knowledge that may still be waiting beneath the surface. And so, we continue to search, not just for the city itself, but for the pieces of history we've lost along the way. Atlantis may be buried deep beneath the waves, but its legacy, whether as a city or a myth, still guides us toward a deeper understanding of our own world. And who knows, the more we uncover, the closer we may get to discovering what we've been searching for all along. As we continue to untangle the web of Atlantis, it's time to address another fascinating aspect of this legend: its supposed cataclysmic end. In Plato's tale, the fall of Atlantis is both sudden and dramatic, described as a complete destruction in just a single day and night. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions ravaged the island, sinking it beneath the waves without a trace. A perfect storm of natural disasters. And then, poof, Atlantis was gone, leaving nothing but a haunting legend in its wake. Now, imagine for a moment the sheer scale of such an event. Picture the earth shaking violently, entire cities crumbling as the ground splits open, massive tidal waves crashing over the island, sweeping away everything in their path. The mighty civilization, which seemed destined to rule the world, disappearing forever into the abyss of the sea. It's the kind of dramatic ending you would expect in an epic tragedy, and, in many ways, Atlantis' fall is exactly that. But here's the thing. Historians and geologists have long debated what could have caused such a massive disaster. Was Plato's account purely symbolic? Or could there have been an actual event in history that inspired this apocalyptic story? Historians still argue whether such a cataclysmic event was realistic, or whether it was a metaphor for the self-destruction of a civilization. One of the most plausible theories revolves around the possibility of a massive natural disaster, one that could have affected the entire Mediterranean region. We've already touched on the volcanic eruption on Thera, Santorini, and it's worth exploring again. This eruption, which occurred around 1500 BCE, was one of the largest in recorded history, and it triggered a devastating tsunami that struck the nearby islands. The eruption and its aftermath caused widespread destruction, particularly to the Minoan civilization. Could Plato have used this event as inspiration for the downfall of Atlantis? Some argue that the sudden and catastrophic nature of the eruption, along with the fact that it occurred in the general area Plato described, makes it a plausible candidate for the origin of the Atlantis myth. But let's not forget the possibility of earthquakes, the kind of massive, earth-shaking events that could level entire cities and cause lands to sink. The Mediterranean region is one of the most seismically active places on Earth, and earthquakes have been a part of the area's history for centuries. Could an earthquake have caused the land beneath Atlantis to collapse into the sea, triggering the flooding that Plato described? This theory certainly has some merit, and it ties in with modern understandings of natural disasters. Then, of course, there's the idea of a global flood, a phenomenon that appears in many different cultures around the world. Plato's story of Atlantis sinking in a flood might have been a reflection of ancient memories of a massive flood event that devastated large areas of the earth. Some scientists speculate that ancient communities might have experienced a massive flood, caused by the melting of ice sheets at the end of the last ice age. Could this have been the catastrophic event that gave rise to the story of Atlantis? In any case, the mystery of how Atlantis was destroyed is just another part of the legend's enduring allure. The suddenness and scale of the destruction raise as many questions as they answer. Was it truly the wrath of the gods? Or was it the result of a natural disaster so powerful that it left no trace behind? We'll probably never know for sure, but the thought of it, a city sinking beneath the waves, lost to time, remains one of the most fascinating aspects of this myth. Now let your mind wander. Picture the skies darkening, the ground shaking beneath your feet. Imagine the rising waters, the panic, the hopelessness of watching everything you know and love being swallowed by the sea. What if Atlantis really did exist, and what if, in some way, the fall of this grand civilization was a message for us? A warning of the dangers of overreach, of believing that we are invincible. It's a haunting thought, isn't it? As we drift through this thought, we might find ourselves asking, if Atlantis was real, could its destruction be a mirror for our own time? Could a similar fate await us if we're not careful? These questions will linger long after tonight's journey has ended. But for now, let's return to the mystery at hand, the destruction of Atlantis, and the whispers of a world that once was lost to the depths. As we continue our exploration of the lost city of Atlantis, let's turn our attention to the ocean itself, the deep, mysterious realm that holds so many secrets. The sea has always been a symbol of the unknown, of mysteries just beyond our grasp. When we talk about Atlantis, we're not just talking about a city or a civilization, we're talking about the vast, uncharted waters of the world, teeming with secrets, both known and unknown. Perhaps it's fitting that a city so elusive, so extraordinary, would have been swallowed by the very thing that is still so full of mystery. Over the centuries, the ocean has become the great repository for secrets. Sunken ships, forgotten cities, and lost civilizations. And as much as we've explored it, the ocean remains largely unexplored. In fact, less than 5% of the ocean's depths have been mapped and studied in any real detail. So when we speak of Atlantis being lost to the sea, it's not just poetic imagery. It's a literal description of how much is still hidden beneath the waves. And that leaves us with the tantalizing possibility. What if Atlantis isn't gone at all? What if it's just waiting to be discovered, lurking beneath the ocean's surface, hidden from our sight for millennia? One of the more fascinating theories suggests that Atlantis is still out there, just waiting to be uncovered. Some scientists believe that the remnants of the lost city could be buried beneath miles of ocean floor. In 2011, a group of researchers working with sonar technology identified unusual patterns in the ocean floor off the coast of the Canary Islands, near the African coast. These patterns resembled the concentric rings that Plato described in his writings, sparking excitement among those who believe Atlantis could be real. The sonar images showed what looked like roads, walls, and even entire cities, structures that appear to be far older than anything we would expect from the civilizations known to have existed in the area. But the real question is, could this be Atlantis? Could it be that, after all these years, we're on the verge of rediscovering a civilization long thought lost? Historians still argue whether these findings can be attributed to natural formations or if they could truly be evidence of an ancient city. In the absence of definitive proof, the mystery continues to captivate our imaginations. The idea that Atlantis could be hiding just beneath our feet, or rather, beneath the sea, reminds us that we have only scratched the surface of what the world has to offer. There are also theories that Atlantis could be hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica. Yes, that's right, Antarctica. Some suggest that, millions of years ago, the continent wasn't covered in ice but was a lush, habitable land where an advanced civilization thrived. As the Earth's poles shifted over time, the land became encased in ice, trapping whatever civilization might have existed there. Could Atlantis be buried beneath those icy layers, waiting to be discovered in the distant future? If the right conditions allow for the ice to melt or the land to be explored, could we one day stumble upon the remnants of this lost world? The idea of Atlantis being hidden beneath the ocean or the ice is both thrilling and sobering. It challenges our understanding of history, forcing us to consider that there may have been civilizations on this earth long before we ever thought possible. Perhaps Atlantis wasn't just a myth after all, but a piece of history that has eluded us for millennia. And then, there's the more fantastical possibility. Perhaps Atlantis didn't just disappear, it ascended. There are fringe theories that suggest Atlantis wasn't destroyed by natural disaster but instead left the Earth, using some form of ancient technology. Maybe the Atlanteans mastered the art of space travel long before we did, ascending to the stars in ships of their own design. It's a theory that is certainly outside the mainstream, but it certainly adds another layer to the mystery. Whatever the truth may be, the sea remains a powerful force in the story of Atlantis. The ocean is vast and unforgiving, a place where civilizations rise and fall, and where treasures are lost, perhaps forever. As we stand on the shores of our own time, looking out over the waters, we can't help but wonder what secrets the ocean still holds. Could Atlantis be out there, waiting to be uncovered? Could the clues we need to understand this ancient mystery lie hidden beneath the waves, just waiting for someone to discover them? For now, all we can do is dream, and hope that one day, we will find the answers we seek. But until then, the ocean will keep its secrets, and the legend of Atlantis will continue to whisper through the ages. Now that we've traveled deep into the ocean and the many theories surrounding Atlantis' fate, let's take a moment to reflect on how the legend of Atlantis has influenced not just our modern ideas of history, but also our collective imagination. Throughout history, the idea of Atlantis has been more than just a lost city. It has become a symbol of the perfect society, a civilization that had everything: knowledge, power, wisdom, and yet, like all things in history, it too was swept away. But why does this story resonate so strongly with us? For centuries, the myth of Atlantis has captured the imagination of philosophers, poets, explorers, and artists alike. It's a myth that's been woven into the fabric of our cultural consciousness, inspiring countless works of literature, art, and film. From the earliest stories in Plato's writings to the modern-day depictions in popular media, Atlantis has been a symbol of both human achievement and the dangers of overreach. It represents the fine line between greatness and ruin, and the way ambition, unchecked by humility, can lead to the downfall of even the greatest of civilizations. Atlantis has appeared in everything from books to movies, TV shows, and even video games. Think of the many portrayals of this fabled city, often depicted as an advanced utopia with technology and culture beyond anything we can imagine. But there's always a catch, isn't there? The city may be grand, but it's usually corrupt, or it becomes corrupt over time, leading to its eventual destruction. It's as though we, as a society, are haunted by the idea that if we become too powerful or too proud, we will share Atlantis' fate. And in that, Atlantis serves as a mirror to our own ambitions. It holds a mirror to our own times, asking the question, are we too heading down a similar path? And it doesn't stop there. The allure of Atlantis has also inspired real-world quests. People have dedicated their lives to finding the lost city, hoping that discovering Atlantis would not only unlock the mysteries of the past, but also give us a glimpse into what we could achieve. In the 19th and 20th centuries, a number of prominent explorers, archaeologists, and even treasure hunters launched expeditions to find the ruins of Atlantis. Some tried to link the legend to various ancient cultures, others to sunken lands. These quests were filled with both passion and desperation, driven by the hope that finding Atlantis could offer profound insights into human history, technology, and even our potential future. But perhaps the greatest influence Atlantis has had is in the realm of philosophy. Plato, through his writings, left us with a profound ethical lesson. His depiction of Atlantis is not merely about a lost city, but about the dangers of power, pride, and excess. He used Atlantis as a metaphor for how societies can rise to great heights, only to be undone by their own flaws. The story of Atlantis forces us to ask, what happens when a society or a civilization grows too confident in its own invincibility? What happens when we lose touch with humility, with nature, or with each other? This question, though set in ancient times, is timeless. It's as relevant today as it was when Plato first wrote about it. We live in a world of growing technological advancements, economic power, and global influence. But with all this, there are still deep, underlying issues, greed, corruption, inequality, that threaten to undo the very societies that built these incredible structures. Perhaps Atlantis is a warning, a reminder that no matter how far we've come, we must always remember our limitations. As we reflect on Atlantis, there's something oddly comforting about it too. In a way, Atlantis represents the eternal cycle of civilizations: growth, greatness, decline, and eventual rebirth. Perhaps it's comforting to think that this cycle is natural, that we, too, can rise, fall, and rise again, learning from the mistakes of the past. And in this, Atlantis may be more than just a myth. It could be the symbol of hope, the hope that, just like Atlantis, we will eventually learn to avoid the mistakes that led to our ruin. As you lie back and ponder these ideas, remember that Atlantis, in all its mystery and grandeur, isn't just a lost city. It's a story of humanity, one that asks us to examine our own ambitions and choices. The next time you find yourself staring out at the vast, endless horizon, let the legend of Atlantis serve as a reminder. It's not about the city that was lost, but the lessons that have been passed down through time. Let's now consider the gods of Atlantis, those divine figures who, according to Plato, played such a central role in both the rise and fall of this great civilization. It's often said that the rulers of Atlantis were descended from the gods, specifically the god Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea. Plato tells us that Poseidon created the island of Atlantis and then ruled over it, alongside his mortal wife, Cleito. They had 5 sets of twin sons, who became the first kings of Atlantis, each ruling over one of the concentric rings of the island. These gods, or semi-divine rulers, were said to live in harmony with the natural world, guided by wisdom and the divine order. But as time went on, the Atlanteans began to lose their connection to the gods. They became more materialistic, more focused on wealth and power than on the virtues that had once made them great. This shift, according to Plato, was the beginning of their downfall. The gods grew angry at the Atlanteans' hubris and sent a series of natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and fires to destroy their city. But here's the intriguing part: were these gods really gods, or could they have been powerful figures in their own right? Some scholars have suggested that the divine rulers of Atlantis might have been human leaders who were revered as gods by their people. Perhaps they were extraordinary leaders, capable of great feats, who became the subject of myth over generations. It's possible that the concept of gods in the Atlantis story was just a way of expressing the immense power and wisdom of the rulers, what we might now call larger-than-life figures. Historians still argue whether these gods were truly divine or if they were simply symbolic representations of great leaders. The idea that the rulers of Atlantis were descendants of Poseidon ties in with the broader theme of divine kingship in many ancient cultures. Across the world, there have been stories of rulers who were believed to have been chosen by the gods, or even to be gods themselves. This idea is central to many myths and religions, from the divine emperors of China to the pharaohs of Egypt. In the case of Atlantis, however, these divine rulers were not perfect. They fell from grace just as quickly as they rose to power. And this, perhaps, is one of the most enduring lessons from the Atlantis myth, that no matter how powerful, no one is invincible, not even those who are seen as divine. The gods in the story of Atlantis also serve as a reminder of the relationship between humanity and the natural world. In the early days of Atlantis, the rulers and their people were said to live in harmony with the land and the sea. But as the civilization grew, they began to exploit the resources around them. They built massive cities, drained resources, and expanded their empire far beyond their original borders. In doing so, they distanced themselves from the divine harmony they had once known. Could Plato have been warning us about our own treatment of the natural world? Were the gods of Atlantis simply metaphors for the forces of nature, forces that can be either nurtured or destroyed by human actions? This leads us to a broader question. What role do myths like the story of Atlantis play in our understanding of the world? They are, in many ways, reflections of the values and fears of the cultures that created them. The myth of Atlantis speaks to the dangers of overreach, of forgetting our place in the grand scheme of things. It reminds us that, even in our pursuit of greatness, we must remain humble, mindful of the consequences of our actions. As you lay back and think about the gods of Atlantis, think about the power they held and the lessons they left behind. In their rise and fall, there is a story not just of a civilization but of humanity itself. Could it be that the fall of Atlantis was not just the collapse of a great city, but the collapse of an idea? An idea that, no matter how high we reach, we must never forget our connection to the forces that shape our world. And so, we return to the central question. Was Atlantis real, or was it just a story? Maybe it doesn't matter. Whether real or imagined, Atlantis continues to captivate us because it speaks to something universal. It reminds us that we are part of a greater cycle, one that is marked by the rise and fall of civilizations, the loss of knowledge, and the eternal quest for understanding. We may never find Atlantis in a literal sense, but the lessons of its story are all around us, waiting to be discovered. Now that we've explored the gods and divine rulers of Atlantis, it's time to delve into the realm of legends. You see, one of the most enduring aspects of the Atlantis story isn't just the idea of the city itself, but the many myths that have grown around it. Over the centuries, cultures across the world have produced stories that bear a striking resemblance to Plato's tale. Could these be echoes of Atlantis, preserved in the collective consciousness of humanity? From the earliest records of the ancient world, we find stories of lost cities, places of great power, wisdom, and beauty that were destroyed by floods, earthquakes, or divine wrath. Many of these tales share common themes with Plato's account of Atlantis, a civilization that flourishes and then falls due to its own arrogance. Take, for example, the many stories of sunken islands that appear in Polynesian, Native American, and South American myths. These are often described as once thriving civilizations, teeming with life and knowledge, only to be swallowed by the sea due to the anger of the gods. In the South Pacific, there is the myth of Mu, a lost continent said to have existed in the Pacific Ocean. Like Atlantis, Mu was said to be a highly advanced civilization with great technological and spiritual knowledge. According to legend, the people of Mu became too prideful and ignored the warnings of their gods. The result? A cataclysmic event that sank the entire continent into the ocean. Similarly, in the Caribbean, the tale of Bimini and the supposed Bimini Road, those curious underwater stone formations, has sparked talk of another lost city, one that might be tied to Atlantis itself. Even in the Americas, we find similar myths, such as the ancient stories of the Maya, who spoke of a great city called Tulan, which was said to have been swallowed by the ocean. The Maya believed that the city's wisdom, which had been passed down through generations, was lost when the city was destroyed. But just like Atlantis, Tulan is said to live on in the dreams and hearts of those who remember its glory. Could these myths, spanning such diverse cultures, all be rooted in the same ancient story of a lost civilization? Historians still argue whether these tales are separate traditions or fragments of a single, widespread legend about Atlantis. This brings us to the question: if all these cultures shared stories of a lost city or civilization, could there have been some actual event that inspired these myths? It's possible that ancient peoples witnessed a great cataclysm, whether it was a massive flood, a volcanic eruption, or an earthquake, that left them with a sense of loss so profound that it became enshrined in their mythologies. The similarities between these tales are striking, and it's hard to ignore the possibility that they're connected to the same ancient catastrophe that Plato described. But beyond the physical events, there's something deeper in these myths. They speak to a universal human fear, the fear of losing everything, of watching a civilization collapse under the weight of its own ambition. These stories are reminders of our own fragility, of how quickly things can be taken away. They reflect our understanding that, no matter how powerful or advanced we become, we are still at the mercy of forces beyond our control: nature, time, and perhaps even our own hubris. And it's this very fear, this feeling of inevitable loss, that has kept the story of Atlantis alive. It's not just the idea of a city sunk beneath the waves that captivates us. It's the idea that, in some way, we might be repeating the same mistakes. The fall of Atlantis is a mirror held up to our own times, urging us to consider whether we, too, might be on the brink of losing something precious. As you lie back and let your mind wander, consider the countless legends that have risen up around the idea of a lost city. Perhaps they're more than just stories. Maybe they're warnings, whispers from the past, urging us to remember the lessons that Atlantis has to teach. It's a thought-provoking idea, isn't it? That the past, with all its myths and tales, is not just a collection of stories, but a blueprint for understanding our own future. As we approach the final stages of our journey through the legend of Atlantis, let's step back and look at the modern-day search for the lost city. Throughout the centuries, the quest to find Atlantis has captivated explorers, treasure hunters, and archaeologists alike. Despite the absence of definitive evidence, there's been no shortage of people trying to uncover the lost city's secrets. And with modern technology, the hunt has reached new levels of intensity. But here's the question: why do we continue to search? What is it about Atlantis that has kept it alive in our collective imagination? Perhaps it's the sense of mystery, the idea that there is still something out there waiting to be discovered. Humanity has always had a thirst for discovery, a need to uncover the unknown. Whether it's the exploration of the stars, the depths of the ocean, or the secrets buried in the earth, there's something inherently satisfying about finding what was once thought lost. Atlantis, with its promise of untold knowledge, ancient technology, and untapped mysteries, is the ultimate treasure waiting to be unearthed. It's the idea that there's something just out of reach, and if we find it, it will change everything. In the modern era, the search for Atlantis has taken on many forms. Some researchers believe that advanced satellite imagery and sonar technology could reveal the submerged ruins of Atlantis beneath the ocean floor. The discovery of strange underwater formations, such as the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, has fueled theories that Atlantis might be hiding just beneath the surface, waiting to be found. The patterns in the ocean floor seem to mimic the concentric circles Plato described. Could this be the long-lost city of Atlantis? While mainstream scientists remain skeptical, the allure of such discoveries keeps the dream alive. Then there's the search for Atlantis in the Mediterranean. For years, archaeologists have speculated that Atlantis could lie beneath the waters near the coast of Spain, or even in the waters off the coast of Cyprus. The evidence is thin, to say the least, but that hasn't stopped the search. Each new expedition offers the tantalizing possibility that Atlantis might be uncovered. And yet, despite the years of searching, nothing definitive has surfaced. But perhaps this is what keeps the search alive. The idea that one day, the pieces will fall into place, and the lost city will finally be found. Even beyond the world of archaeology, the search for Atlantis has had an impact on pop culture. Atlantis has appeared in countless books, movies, and television shows, each imagining what the city might look like and how it might have influenced the world. Disney's animated film Atlantis, The Lost Empire, brought the legend to life in a vibrant, imaginative way, while numerous documentaries continue to explore new theories about the city's location and fate. These portrayals keep the myth alive in the collective consciousness, and they inspire new generations to think about the possibility of a lost world waiting to be discovered. The modern search for Atlantis isn't just about the physical city. It's about what it represents. It represents humanity's drive for discovery, the desire to uncover lost knowledge, and the belief that there are still great mysteries out there, waiting to be unlocked. It speaks to our inherent curiosity, our willingness to search beyond what we know and dive into the unknown. The quest for Atlantis is not just a search for a lost city. It's a search for meaning, for understanding, and for connection to a past that may be more mysterious and more important than we ever realized. As you lie back and let these ideas settle in, think about how many times in history we've stumbled upon something unexpected. Discoveries that were thought impossible. Lost civilizations, long-lost artifacts, and even ancient technologies that have shaped the world. Maybe Atlantis, in a way, isn't a place to be found. Maybe it's a symbol of our constant yearning to reach beyond what we know, to explore the farthest corners of the earth, the sea, and even the universe. Whether we ever uncover the city of Atlantis or not, the story itself is part of us, urging us to keep searching, to keep dreaming. As we finally near the end of our journey, it's time to reflect on the larger implications of the Atlantis myth and what it might mean for us today. After all, we've spent quite some time wandering through the mystery of the city, its rise, its fall, and the ongoing search for it. Yet, at the heart of this story is something far more profound than just a city beneath the sea. Atlantis, whether real or imagined, serves as a powerful symbol, a cautionary tale that transcends time and continues to speak to humanity's deepest fears and aspirations. In many ways, the story of Atlantis is a mirror to our own civilization. It asks us to consider the fragility of human achievement, the fleeting nature of greatness, the tendency to fall victim to our own pride and hubris. Plato's tale of a mighty empire brought low by its own arrogance is a lesson we can all relate to, regardless of the time or place. Every civilization, no matter how powerful or advanced, eventually faces its reckoning. And whether it's through internal corruption, external conflict, or the destructive forces of nature, the fall of Atlantis serves as a timeless reminder of how quickly things can unravel. But there's also hope within the legend. While the destruction of Atlantis may seem like a tragic end, the myth itself suggests the possibility of rebirth. Just as civilizations rise and fall, so too can knowledge be lost and rediscovered. The story of Atlantis endures because it taps into a deeper, universal desire to understand the past and to learn from it. As we search for Atlantis, whether in the ocean depths or within the pages of history, we're not just looking for the remnants of an ancient city. We're searching for meaning, for answers to the great questions of life. How did we get here? What can we learn from those who came before us? And, perhaps most importantly, how can we avoid repeating the same mistakes? In this sense, Atlantis is more than just a lost city. It is a symbol of humanity's quest for knowledge, our desire to transcend the limitations of our time, to reach for something greater. It represents our belief that there is always more to discover, whether it's the lost knowledge of an ancient civilization or the untapped potential within ourselves. And perhaps this is why the legend endures, because at its heart, Atlantis embodies a hope that no matter how far we fall, we can always rise again, if we learn from the past. So, as you reflect on the mystery of Atlantis, consider this. Whether or not the city ever existed doesn't change the lessons it imparts. In the end, Atlantis may not be a place at all. It may be an idea, a reminder that greatness, power, and knowledge are fragile things, always subject to the whims of time, nature, and our own choices. But it is also a reminder that the search for understanding is a journey worth taking, one that may lead us to places we never thought possible. Now, as the evening draws to a close, let the mystery of Atlantis linger in your mind. Perhaps, in some way, the story of this lost civilization is a story that we're all a part of, one that speaks to our own hopes, fears, and dreams for the future. Atlantis may never rise again, but its lessons will continue to guide us, urging us to seek knowledge, to remain humble, and to always wonder, what if?